John with Citizen Survival Plan here. I want to go over some of the current events, the bombings and all the conflict going on between Israel, Hamas, the Gaza Strip, and what's going on and what that might mean for us here in the United States or around the world. I'm going to go over some of the stuff that we might want to think about getting ready right now and what we should be doing currently if you're preparing. We just had the emergency test. I think that was October 4th, where they're testing all this and making sure it's working. We have the border that's being overrun, and I don't really want to get into politics, but more of just what's happening. There's not really any denying that the border's being overrun here in the United States. And I've heard a lot of reports that they are actually arresting people who are on the terrorist watch list at our border. And that's a problem because we know they're not getting everybody. And we're watching what's happening in Israel and terrorist attacks and whatnot. And I don't really watch the news that much. I'm mostly just on YouTube, but I see Fox News clips and stuff, and Fox News is already coming out and saying, oh, get ready, like terrorist attacks are happening here. Whether you think that's going to happen or not here, especially when the mainstream news media says anything, I just question it. Like, why are they saying that? Do they really think there's going to be attacks here? Or are they just stoking fear? I don't know. I don't like any news organizations that they all have like they're leaning towards, certain politics. So just keep that in mind whenever you're watching something like that. Also, all the prepping channels across YouTube are just kind of going off. This is the end. This is it. This is the end of the world. Blah, blah, blah. I don't necessarily think so. I mean, obviously I'm a prepping channel. I think we're facing a lot of issues these days. I think that, we're going to see some big emergencies in the near future in our lifetime. So, I'm a prepper, so I think about that stuff. I don't like to come out every day and say it's the end, and this probably isn't either, but this is certainly going to be an emergency. So, one thing I've noticed that I don't like, and if I'm going to criticize the government, I'm going to kind of do it both ways here. So, we have the left side of our United States politics, kind of wanting to fund Ukraine, and we've sent billions over there. We're printing money. We're halfway shutting the government down. None of this makes any sense to fund the Ukraine war. And then, we start to get some pushback from the right, and, public sentiment's kind of dropping where we don't really want to do that. And all of a sudden, now there's a war in Israel. So now the Republicans are just instantly, let's send money there. It's like, so they're all kind of hypocrites, right? Like we're all just watching this, and it's just one emergency to the next. And it seems that it's been like that for a long time. The COVID emergency and all these emergencies. And it's always just like one side doesn't want to spend money on something, and then another emergency will pop up, and then they want to spend all kinds of money on that emergency. So just kind of funny to watch. One thing that I worry about the most on this channel, and if you know me, like I worry about our government just spending money into oblivion. I mean, it's like 33 trillion in debt, and it's climbing. I don't know if you've ever watched the national debt clock. It's actually insane to watch. And I listen to a lot of economists. I listen to Peter Schiff sometimes. He seems to have his head on straight and he kind of cuts through a lot of nonsense when people talk around, how we can print money and do all this and that. And he's really good at just going right through it. So he's not the end all. I mean, but he's good to listen to. He said that we're on track to spend $1 trillion in 1 month, not in exactly 1 month, but like 5 or 6 weeks. So that's insane. I mean, think about how long it takes just to spend $1 trillion, like from, when we got our first trillion. I don't know how long it took. It took like years, like 20, 30 years or something, to get to just 1 trillion, and that when we were already at like a couple billion or whatever. But $1 trillion in 1 month is crazy. And I'm no economist. I'm not some, guru on finance or whatever. But if you don't think it's crazy to spend $1 trillion in 6 weeks, how fast is this going to accelerate, especially with the Israel war, with Gaza and whatnot? I mean, who knows? The right side could come out and be like, all right, we need $100 billion like tomorrow, and they'll just print it or borrow it or whatever. How long is that going to last? Can we do this forever? Can we, can we be 200 million trillion? Like, I don't even know the number. Like, what's the end? What's the end of that? And what's that look like? A lot of things that I worry about is having a financial crisis in this country, and like insurance is not working and stuff. I mean, we have tons of people like on antidepressants and stuff. I mean, imagine supply chains crashing and having big financial problems in this country where you can't get to a doctor, you can't spend money, and people are coming off their meds and they're unprepared. They've not thought about this. They're just worried about going on vacation or going to Disney World or whatever. All of a sudden they come off their meds and they have no food. I mean, that's sort of where I am and when I think about things. I just think about how close we are to just total shit hit the fan. Just everything collapsing at once, even with just like a financial problem. Not even terrorist stuff happening in the country. One thing I think everyone should be doing right now, and I kind of made some notes, is don't go out and just buy a ton of guns. Like, don't run out and just like start buying up ammunition, guns, whatever. Like, we have them. I think 1,000 rounds for each one of your rifles is probably not a bad idea. You don't need a stockpile probably any more than that. In my opinion, I mean, that's just my opinion, but I mean, sometimes people see crisis coming. The only thing they think is guns, just guns, just more guns. I mean, it's good to have, but I mean, just slow down on it. If you don't have one, get one for sure. I would start with getting some water filters and a Katadyn, or get a Berkey, or I know my Patriot Supply has the Alexa Pure. That looks okay. It doesn't seem like it filters as much as the Berkey, but it's a little bit cheaper. So the first thing you're going to run out of in an emergency, or if like supply chain shut down and you had a financial crisis in this country, is you're going to need a way to defend yourself. So I don't want people to take that I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is get some food and water. You don't want to end up starving and out of water right away. So, protection, food, and water. Like, this is the first couple things you need to have. I'm going to recommend, and I've made videos about this before, but get freeze-dried food. I feel like it's really hard to make the argument that like canned food and stuff is better. All I need is some boiled water to make it. And I've seen comments where people are like, I can make canned food and like wash all my dishes with 2 or 3 cups of water, which I'd like to see that, but we're going to stay in reality here. Get some freeze-dried food. You can boil just a little bit of water, put it in, you can eat it. And those, like the Mountain House stuff or whatever you can cook and bag, it packs flat. So I have very little garbage. I could just take all of the garbage in those big Home Depot bins we have. You could just smash it all flat in one of them. You could eat for months and smash all the food flat, in one of those bins. So it would be really, really easy to do that. And I'm not making a bunch of dishes, so minimal garbage and no dishes, just some boiled water. And make sure you have a propane stove to actually cook all your food on, because keep in mind, the power might be out. If there's an attack on our electrical grid or something, we always want to plan that nothing's going to be working. If you can plan like that, you're going to be in a good spot. Propane stoves, or even if you want to have another way to cook, like one of those rocket stoves you can get off Amazon, just put in your backyard or whatever. Not a bad way. You boil water on it and cook use a little bit of wood. Start getting your GMRS radio license. GMRS is the one that I recommend, and I know I've had some comments on the channel that are like, hey, why would I do GMRS? That sucks. I have ham. There's not a lot of ham operators in this country or around the world. It's less than 1% of the population. I'm not going to say that if you have ham, that it's not better than GMRS. You can go further on ham. Something that concerns me with the radio system that the ham radio users use is they use a lot of repeaters, and they connect out, to repeater, and they connect through different modes of a system, kind of. I don't want to get too deep into it, but in an emergency, I don't know how many of those run on solar and how many of those are going to be running or could be damaged by electrical grid attacks or connected to the grid and got fried, and maybe a EMP attack or something. So that's one thing to think about with ham radio or GMRS. If you have a repeater that you hit on your GMRS, look into it and see if it's backup powered or whatever. So don't get used to it just being there. Also, GMRS you can get right away. I can get my GMRS radio license tomorrow if I apply for it today, and I could be up and running up to 50 watts overnight, basically. I also like GMRS because all those little FRS radios that people have, they all connect into your GMRS equipment, and I think it's going to really be like citizen radio in SHTF event. You're going to be able to hear everybody. I want to listen in. I want to hear what's going on. If something's happening a mile away or whatnot, or if someone's being attacked or whatever, I'm going to hear it on that radio. Everyone's going to be using them, and they're going to be using their GMRS stuff. So I do really like GMRS for emergency. If you're a ham guy, don't come on here and like attack me for it. Ham's cool. If I could get my ham license, I would. I'm very busy. This isn't my only thing that I do, YouTube. This is a very small piece of my life that I do YouTube. But yeah, ham is good too. I just really like GMRS. If you have your ham license, you should get your GMRS license too. I've tested all my radios all around town. I know where the dead spots are, and I know where I can connect. I know the high spots and the elevations of all kinds of areas that I can connect around my town. The Spot X wouldn't be bad. The little Garmin communicators or the Spot X, if you need to hand it off to a family member that's just too far away, because GMRS is like 30 miles max. I mean, you're probably not going to go any further than 30 miles unless you're on top of a mountain. You can go pretty far. So if you need to communicate with somebody, maybe thinking about getting a satellite communicator for sure. With all of this going on, and we worry about terrorists that have possibly crossed our border, making attacks on the electrical grid or whatever. Yeah, definitely have some comms. Other things that probably aren't up what I'm worried about right this second is EMP stuff. But you should be EMP proofing some of your equipment. I get those metal trash cans and I line them with cardboard, and I take the Faraday Defense EMP bags and I put my radio equipment in that, and then I put them into the EMP cans. So not all of your stuff has to go in it, but have some backups that maybe a 20-watt base station and a couple handhelds that can go in there. Other considerations right now to make, in my opinion, would be winter's coming. So if the power goes out, especially if you have children, a lot of this channel I consider children because I have children, and a lot of you probably do too. You don't want to be living in your house in the freezing cold. Our children cannot take it like we can. Get a buddy heater. Stock up some propane. If you can, go down to Tractor Supply and install a propane heater in your house, like one of the big, like 10 or 15,000 BTU ones in your home. It's not hard. You could hire somebody to just hook it up and put a tank outside of your house, and you could have like 60 to 100 gallons of propane heat throughout the winter, and make sure you top it off every year. I have one of those, but we also have the buddy heater, and I store a lot of propane. So something to think about when power goes out. Are you going to be able to heat your house? If you have a wood stove in your house, that's not as important, but something to think about. This one's a little bit heavier, but I want to mention it. I know a lot of people that have guns and Maybe they just have a bolt action rifle, or they have an AR. I see a lot of them come to the range and like their stuff's not sighted in, or they put an Amazon mount on a scope or something, and they get to the range and it's like way off target. Get your rifles ready. Go to the range and make sure you can hit a target at 50 yards. Or 100. 100 would probably be better. Make sure you can consistently hit. Make sure your shots aren't going all over the place. If your rifles, if you have an AR or anything else that you can replace parts on, if you've been using the rifle a while, like replace your gas rings, your cam pin, and just some of the wear components on your rifle now. And the batteries on your electronic sights, if you have electronic sights, go ahead and just pop a new battery in there. Every Christmas, I put a new CR 2032 into all my red dots. I do it once a year, and I've never had any of the red dots go bad. Not bad, but the battery die. Another thing that I want to mention that I want people to think about. If you just go to one, and I call them FUD ranges, because one shot, 3 seconds, another shot, and you're only allowed to sit at a bench. You can't stand up and shoot. You can't lay down and shoot. You can't practice kneeling and resting your gun on something and shooting a target. Think about finding a place to shoot your rifles in a less controlled environment. I don't mean to be unsafe. I just mean I want you to be able to stand, kneel, lay, use your rifle in a way that you may be using it if you're defending your home or something. When I first started shooting, the only range that I knew was available was one that was local to here, and I could only shoot on a bench. You couldn't stand up, you couldn't do nothing. It was one shot every 3 seconds, or you got kicked out of the range. It's a nightmare. You're not going to learn anything at that range. Stand up, hold your gun, and figure it out. If you can't do that at your range, go to another range. Also, one last consideration about the range shooting. If you only shoot in an indoor range and you have an AR-15 or another rifle system, and they all run off gas systems, unless you're shooting like a PCC or something, that's just blowback. But if you have only ever shot your gun in indoor ranges where the temperature's, perfectly controlled at 70 degrees or whatever, you need to test your guns year-round. Take them out when it's hot. See where your ejection pattern is. Is my gun overgassed? Is it undergassed? Take it out in the middle of winter. You'll find that if you have a perfectly gassed rifle in the middle of summer on a 90-degree day, if it's 10 degrees out, your rifle might not work. You might be undergassed in the middle of winter. So make sure your rifles work in all conditions. We're not going to know when an emergency is going to happen, or we're going to have to defend our homes or families. So it could be cold, it could be hot. Make sure your rifle works in all conditions. That's a really important one. And if you go to an outdoor range and you've shot all seasons, you're probably good to go. I just want to mention that I'm not a big fan of indoor ranges or FUD ranges, as I call them, where it's like one shot. You have to sit at a bench. They're just annoying to me. So this is some considerations. I don't want to say it's the end of the world or anything, but I certainly think that we have the potential for some spicy situations here in the United States. I hope you guys take my considerations and think about them and maybe act on some of the things that I said. Thanks.